This episode of Tea with Jules is proudly brought to you by The Home. You can shop any of the items you see in this episode at thehome.com.au. John Maclean, thank you so much for joining me today.
A pleasure, Jules.
A pleasure to have you, really. I'm excited to hear your story, and to have you here in person is really such an honour, so thank you for coming. Before we get started, this is Tea with Jules, so I have to ask you, are you a tea drinker?
Yes, I often have chamomile tea to calm me down because I'm I try to be relaxed before I go to sleep, so chamomile would be my tea of choice.
Yes. Okay, well, feel free to drink the tea
Thank you.
while we chat. Now, you're a motivational speaker, you're an author, and you're also an athlete, and that's putting it very simply. But some of your achievements are this. In '95, you became the first wheelchair athlete to finish the course of the world's toughest multidiscipline sporting event, the Hawaii Ironman Triathlon. And because of your achievements in that, you have been inducted into the Hawaiian Ironman Triathlon Hall of Fame, and the first non-American to do that. So that's a huge achievement. The first wheelchair athlete to swim the English Channel. Unbelievable. Represented Australia in the Sydney 2000 Paralympic Games. 2001 sailed the Sydney to Hobart yacht race. You have a silver medal in rowing for the Rowing World Championships and won silver for rowing at the 2008 Beijing Paralympic Games. I love how you're nodding, like correct. You've started a foundation that's providing support and assistance to Australian wheelchair users under the age of 18. Most recently, you completed the Nippon Triathlon as a conventional athlete. And your biggest dream of all is to walk again. You've done all of these things, which are, okay, if I'd done one of those things, I'd be pretty proud of myself and I'd probably just stop there. But the fact that you are still going and you're still achieving all these amazing things and you still have huge dreams is just an inspiration, really, it is. But there is so much more to your story that I want to find out. So can you take me back to, let's say, your childhood and how you grew up, where you grew up, and how all this began?
Sure. I grew up in Tregear. Tregear is a suburb of Mount Druitt in Sydney's west. We come from very humble beginnings. Our house was fibro. If there was a brick veneer house, those people were doing really well. So that's kind of very blue collar. I had a dream as a little boy of being an athlete. That's what I aspired to be. Maybe I should have paid more attention to the teacher with a chalkboard than I gazing out the window thinking about recess and running and lunchtime running around. But it's how I express myself and how I love to live. So I guess those early stages to be involved in sport. My dad said to me, you know, we want you to do sport. It's a good way of meeting people, making friends, and burning off some energy. So that's, I guess, my early introduction to sport. So I managed to play reserve grade football for Penrith up until just before my accident at the age of 22. So, you know, from early beginnings to 22, for me, life was fantastic.
So you had the dream of being a football player. You were well on your way to doing that. And then you said you had an accident. Can you tell me a bit more about that day?
Sure. So we had a roster day off from work. I was working at a primary school as a groundsman, mowing lawns, building fences, making sure that, up and down ladders for teachers, and I was about to sit a test to be a fireman. On my roster day off, I went for a bike ride to kind of keep fit for rugby league cross training. I was hit from behind by an 8-ton truck, which was going 110 kilometres an hour on a freeway. Result for me was broken back in 3 places, pelvis in 4, arm in 2, fractured sternum, broken ribs, punctured lungs, a closed head injury. So on the side of the freeway, was then taken from there to Westmead Hospital. Parents were notified I'd been involved in an accident. They made their way to the hospital. Many hours later, they had the opportunity to see me, and just before the surgeon left the room, he notified my parents that he did not expect me to live due to the extent of injury. So very hard to hear that of a loved one. I was then, clearly I pulled through that, was then taken from Westmead Hospital to North Shore by helicopter, a couple of days in a coma, and then eventually came out of a coma. So the result of all of that being an incomplete, meaning my spinal cord was not completely bruised or severed, some sparing, not much. So I then spent 4 months in Royal North Shore Hospital. So I went from 22 and life is fantastic to 22 and broken, like physically, spiritually broken. So it was really difficult to go through that experience. But I guess I had a choice to either feel sorry for myself for the rest of my life, and coming out of this intensive care ward to a general ward from ICU, the other 3 guys had all broken their necks, so they couldn't move. So you can imagine if you're in a bed and you're being wheeled in and these 3 guys are looking at you, wanting to be you, right? Because I could move my upper body. So I always had a sense of never having the audacity to feel sorry for myself, because clearly there were people worse off. So when I finally wheeled out of that hospital 4 months later, the door to possibility was ajar, and it was up to me to decide to go through that door.
Wow, that is an intense time of life for you. I can't even imagine. When you realised what had happened to you, you came out of your coma. When you first realised what had happened, what were your feelings at that point?
There's this natural grieving process, and very difficult to let go in those early stages, meaning that all I wanted to do was to get out of pain, get out of the hospital, and get back to doing what I loved to do, which was run and play football and live the life that I was living. So you're in this spinal unit and you can't go anywhere, and there's no laughter. There's only tears and sadness, because family and friends get a chance to see loved ones broken. So for me, it was difficult to let go, because I didn't want to let go, and everything being done for you. When I say everything, it's so you're leaving your pride at the front door, and hopefully you pick that up on the way out. So absolutely go through depression, absolutely be at the bottom of the barrel, absolutely be in darkness, no light, just dark. And I guess this is the piece of the flicker where you can find yourself. So it's a choice to decide whether you want to stay in that space, and a lot do, or to try and find a glimmer of light, and with that light then becomes hope, and hope becomes possibility, and possibility becomes potential, and potential becomes action. So for me, a couple of things that happened that were quite significant. My family doctor came to visit me, not a spinal specialist, my family doctor growing up as a little boy, Dr. Gabriel. And he came in and sat on the side of the bed and looked me in the eye and he said, "John, you will be bigger, you will be stronger, and you will be faster." Left the room. Planted a seed of hope.
Wow.
My dad saying, "Son, I'll give you my legs if I could," father to son. My brother saying to me, "John, this is going to be a marathon opposed to a sprint." Terminology that I could understand. So to your point, did I go through darkness and was it hard? Absolutely. I remember saying to my girlfriend at the time that I wanted her to meet somebody else so she could walk on the beach and she could live a life and do those things. So this process of letting go and trying to find yourself, because I believe that we all have truck moments in life, not to the point of actually getting hit by a truck. I don't recommend that for anybody. It's very painful, but it's confronting that fear and then moving beyond that. So that was very difficult.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You said your dad said, "I would give you my legs if I could." It's life altering for a parent to have a child that's sick. What was their reaction?
Well, that's always a really difficult one to answer, because only the individual, i.e. you or me, can look out of our eyes to get our perception on what we believe to be true. What I can feel from what had taken place, my dad was devastated because he couldn't do anything. He would massage my legs and will them to come back to life, but and my mum was emotionally distraught, and they had to drive to come and see me in hospital, and clearly all of my direct family are affected. The coach of the football team that I was playing with, had to notify all the players that I'm not coming back. So it's a wide-reaching effect. The school that I was working at, Mr. John, they used to call me a lot of the kids, right? So Mr. John was not coming back. So it's just this severing of the ties. So back to my parents. My father passed away in March this year, so I had an opportunity to start again with my dad in a different way. It's almost that dad was there to nurture and look after me, as was my mother. But when I was at home, after spending 4 months in a spinal unit, my dad would go to work and then he'd come home and I'd have some breakfast and he'd take me to the gymnasium to try and work on what I had access to. I'd then do some hydrotherapy and Dad would bring me home. I'd have a sleep. I'd then have some lunch, and he was there to watch his son start over from scratch again. So I will always be grateful for what my parents had. I'd flown the coop 1 month before.
Wow.
22nd birthday, moved out with a buddy. Like, I'm free, I'm independent, I've got my life, job, car, everything. 1 month later, almost dead, spiraling in at 4 months, and I come back home again. So it was difficult for parents to, say goodbye and then kind of nurture and care and support again. So my parents were there when I needed them most.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful for that. And I know that they were affected deeply from my injury, from my accident.
At what point did you become this determined human being? You obviously had to rebuild not only your body again and your emotions and your will, but at what point did you start on all of these achievements and have that drive and determination to become a success?
I believe that we all have the capacity to do what we choose to do, meaning that it's all about dialogue. And my view is it's more about internal dialogue than it is external dialogue. This is an example of external dialogue. We don't often talk about internal dialogue, but we do more than that. How do we look in the mirror? What are we thinking? I mean, these random thoughts that pop in and out. So for me, I wanted to be seen as equal. That was my drive. And 1 minute I'm a professional athlete, then I have an accident, and then I come out of the accident. All of a sudden, society has a label for me, and that label is called a disability. So hang on a minute, I don't feel like I'm less than everybody else. So I was always really struggled with that, and I thought, how do I combat that? And having the opportunity with my best mate, John Young, played football together, come to visit me in hospital once a week for 4 months. There's true friendship. He was there to assist me to be my best. And the reason I wanted to go on to do sports like the Hawaiian Ironman was that no wheelchair athlete had done it before. One had started but not finished. So I thought, if I can climb that mountain, arguably the toughest one-day event on the planet, then I will see myself as being equal, and hopefully others will as well. So I thought, there's my opportunity. And I got in touch with the people. I found out the race was going to be in Florida. Whoever won the category, the wheelchair category, was going to go to Hawaii. So when I did Hawaii the first year, I missed the bike cut-off by 40 minutes, asked to continue, which I did in 14:52, so didn't get it right. Went back the next year, so there's the disciplines of a swim of 3.8 kilometres, a bike ride of 180, hand bike, and then you do a marathon, so a race in wheelchair. So the next year I do the swim in about 1:07, I'm on the bike course with 50 kilometres to go, I get a flat. So fixed the flat, I missed the bike cut-off by 15 minutes. 15 over 180 kilometres.
Because of a flat tyre.
Because of a flat tyre.
Oh, how annoying.
So back into the racing wheelchair and finished in 14:39. Go back the next year and finally get it right in 12 hours 21. So this determination was just wanting to be seen as equal.
Right.
And that was my motivation, and I guess I just wanted to kind of tap into, explore what that could look like for me, which one thing then led on to another.
Yeah. And what about on a personal level? You have a beautiful wife, Amanda, and you have a son, Jack, who's 6.
Yeah.
Can you tell me your love story and how you guys met and how that all unfolded?
Ours is well, I think it's I'm invested in the story because it's mine, but we met quite by chance because I was asked to do a presentation for Dimmicks back in the day, and I didn't know that there were publishers in the room as well, so just asked to share a story. So the first question was, have you got a book? And I said, no, I don't. And that's kind of how that opened up that door into publishing. And then over time I had the opportunity to meet with Murdoch Books, and Amanda worked for Murdoch Books. She was the head of marketing and sales globally. So her role was to travel quite extensively. And I kind of just liked it straight away. So, and we were friends for a number of years because, she would take me to an event if I was available and vice versa. And it was kind of nice to have this friendship. And then over time, I guess I kind of realised that it's time for me to get on with it, and then it was up to me to decide whether I wanted to, push that friendship to the next level. And we did that, and the wonderful thing is that we both connected, the timing was right, and then our little boy Jack came along.
And it's nice to have someone that's done quite a bit of the journey with you as well, just seeing, you kind of come into your own and see what it takes to live your life.
Well, I can't ask or speak for Amanda, but she does something similar in terms of she looks after the back end for me, because she's home to make sure that Jack's ready to go for school when I'm travelling overseas, and picking him up and taking him to learn to swim or music. She's always there to manage it. So there's the hat of looking after John Maclean business, there's the hat of being a mother, there's the hat of multiple hats, which you're fully aware of. One of the things I learned, which is I think really important to share, is that whatever was is gone, right? And a lot of people live in the past, continue to live. Example, I could say to you that I'm still angry with the truck driver that hit me back in 1988.
Right.
And if we started to have that dialogue, I would be living 28 years ago. Yeah? So it's like whatever that was, gone. Release that because you have no control over it. The clock is ticking. And the importance of being present where you are. And I believe that then opens up potential for tomorrow. So when you mentioned that stuff, that was all wonderful, but it's gone, right? It's gone. And I would hope in the future that my little boy can see Daddy as being a Superman. Well, he's very much into Pokemon, so maybe I should be a Pokemon. Because, you know what I mean? So it's about being in the moment to explore what can take place tomorrow. And I'm excited to do all that I can to be the best father and the best husband.
Yeah. And when you say opportunities are always presenting themselves to us, how do we know when it's the right opportunity or the right timing, or if it even is an opportunity?
Well, I think you should always start. Because if you don't start, you're always waiting. And therefore life can go by and you never took an opportunity.
Right.
I think you should always be passionate about what you want to do. That's key. And explore that. And if that road then comes to a dead end, well, at least you started.
Right.
And then you might, along the way, you might have to turn left or turn right to continue to gather momentum. And eventually it gets you onto a freeway where, you know, you're in the right car, sitting in the right seat, heading in the right direction. So I think one should make a start. And, you know, if you're not enjoying what you're doing, then you should change.
Right.
Actively go, this is not right for me. Have discussions with invested people, significant others, and then, you know, hopefully they'll support you to be the best that you can. So I'm all about not wanting to waste time, get in that seat and do what it is that you're meant to do and make the most of it.
Now, can we talk about your dream obviously was to walk again? Tell me how you walked in the door today, going from being in a wheelchair for how many years?
25.
25 years.
Yes.
To walking in the door today.
So this is a good story because, again, I believe it's for everybody, right? Here's the example. So I had my accident, which we shared. I've damaged my spinal cord. I'm incomplete. Shared that as well, so there's still some sparing.
Yep.
I could hobble around on crutches.
Okay, so you had feeling in your legs?
More left side than right side. My
Okay.
paralysis is mainly affecting my right side.
Okay.
Okay. So I can, I have function on my left, I do not have function on my right. So with those crutches, I would drag myself up and down the street and I would spend so much time and energy to do that. But the result of that was I was fatigued for a lot of time.
Right.
So I'd sleep 12 hours, I'd go and do my exercises, and then I'd sleep again in the afternoon. So my life was unfolding and I was sleeping a lot.
So you were teaching yourself how to do that.
Correct.
Yep.
So and the message would still get through my spinal cord. And then I realised with my dad, because this is 12 months of trying to get back to the life that I had, and it was not happening. So my dad and I had a cry. It was quite cathartic, and I let go of the dream of walking and running again. Okay, here's my wheelchair. Dad then said, "Son, how far can you go?" Which I think is for everybody as well, right? It's a great question. So I thought, okay, let's see how far I can go, and I managed to go some places. And then I was getting ready for Rio in terms of the Paralympics with a new sport. I met a guy called Ken Ware. Ken Ware had studied a different side of science. He kind of got chaos, really connected to that. Come up with a therapy called tremor therapy. He had studied that for 25 years. I had done sport for 25 years and we collided. Had an opportunity to meet him. I went through his therapy. So I go and see this guy. He puts me on this equipment. So it's gym equipment. It's very light. So it has a unilateral application, meaning it's not a fixed plane. Does that make sense? Like a bar would be fixed. Get you to close your eyes, so switching off your visual cortex. And essentially what's happening now with applying mild resistance, imagine with your eyes closed and someone's pushing you up against a wall. So it's confronting, right? Imagine your anxiety is lifting, especially over time with this resistance. So he would keep on coaching me on the side saying, "John, let the thought go. Let that thought go." So all these thoughts keep on coming into our brains. And I thought, okay, so I'm an athlete, I can kind of stand up to this. But a lot of stuff was coming up and he just said, let that go. And then you get centered and you become calm. But over time with resistance, the body is able to go into a tremor if you allow. Meaning that it's not sure what's happening because are you pushing this thing away? Is it coming down? Like it's rebooting of the nervous system. So he said, when my arm started to shake, he said, just leave it in your arms, leave it there. And then in my upper body, it became quite violent. And he said, leave it in that space. And he said, when I let you let it go through your whole body, I'll tell you to let it to evolve. So I'm still holding it. Now we're talking minutes here, right? We're not talking seconds, minutes. Eventually he started to get quite aggressive, and then he said, okay, let it evolve. And I let it go. I still had the resistance in my arms, and my legs were bouncing around and jumping up and down and doing this and doing that. And there's no way in the world, in a normal gym environment, I would let that happen.
Right.
Right? No way.
Yeah.
I would have my eyes open. And so he's going, this is good, just hold the weight, hold the weight. So at the end of it, I was quite exhausted. And that's when he went, okay, there's clearly something going on here. And then another piece of equipment and another piece of equipment. So it was letting go of any thoughts that I couldn't do it. It was more, what can I do? And at the conclusion, he then said, so what do you want to do? And I said, I want to walk. And that's how that process started. So what we found was I let go of all that. And it's important to share that with you. That meant that I had to give away the racing wheelchair, give away the hand cycle, give away the life, lock the door, throw the key. So disconnect. Now be fully engaged in exploring what this walking can look like.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'm 100% committed.
Wow. That's brave.
And with all the effort then, and that's true because a lot of people would want to hold on to that because that might have been their world or their identity or, right?
Absolutely.
It's like, done all that, great, new book, new opportunity. And we explored that and we found that I fell over a lot, but I kept on getting back up and we made adjustments and we made adjustments and adjustments. And eventually I had that moment in time with Amanda where we walked on the beach and it was 50 metres, but it took 25 years to have that 50 metres and it was magical. So,
Was she just in tears?
Well, yeah, it was emotional for both of us, but you can see for me, I had to let go of a lot to get to that point in time. And when I talk about a lot, it's a lot of the dialogue because conversations around, I'm in too much pain, I can't walk on this. And so the more that we have these conversations, the more that we start to believe them.
Yeah.
So Ken said, you always had the potential, meaning this was always possible. You just didn't think that it was. And over time, I used to articulate, someone said, who are you? I'd say, John Maclean, wheelchair athlete. And Ken said, you better stop saying that if you want to get out of it.
Right.
Consciously. So it's almost like driving a car.
Yeah.
When you first start, you might recall you're paying a lot of attention. Maybe mum or dad are the driving, put on your seatbelt and blinker and 3-point turn. And then over time, you don't even think about it anymore. Just automatic. So that's this way of thinking or thought. So Ken challenged me on that. I was like, wow, I'm not even aware. So then I stopped using that language and I stopped the wheelchair conversation. It's just, I'm no longer John Maclean, wheelchair athlete. I'm John Maclean. So eventually, then I got some technology out of the military. There's a guy got in touch with me from Melbourne, Darren Piera, and his company is neuromuscular orthotics. So imagine a paralysed limb, you're putting a brace around it with technology, carbon fibre and Velcro and everything. And I found that it's possible to ride a bike. So after all those years, and then I thought, okay, can I go back and do the triathlon that I was training for 26 years later? Just questions that this conversation, old person would not have had.
Yeah.
New person's like, let's explore that. So it's almost deleting my computer and starting from scratch. And it was so wonderful to have that opportunity to cross the finish line with Amanda and Jack after 26 years to finally finish what I started. And it all had to do with Ken's way of letting go of that, exploring potential and trying.
My mind is actually blown. That is so hard for me to wrap my head around. It's unbelievable. So you don't have any wheelchairs at home, nothing. It's
so
all...
There was a wheelchair everywhere. There was a wheelchair in the car, there was a wheelchair in the house, there was a wheelchair in the gym, and I would hobble on my crutches in between the house and the car. Now there is no wheelchair in the house. So I'm walking around and I'm improving my walking all the time. If I'm living in the moment, I'm exploring what's possible, and I keep on getting excited about what I can look forward to. It's opening up doors that I would never have dreamed about. So the next thing that's coming up is I'm going to see whether it's possible to do a half Ironman conventionally. Right? My legs, doing a 1.9 kilometre swim, 90 kilometre bike ride, and then it's a 21 kilometre run. But I'm going to see whether it's possible to see how far I can walk that distance. So you can see the piece around potential and looking forward and being excited, because I think that we should always have something to look forward to in 4 areas. Something for you, right? Because it's your world. You look at you in the mirror. It's your life. Then it should be family, because that's where you start and finish. My dad had passed, so I get that. Business, you should be passionate about what you do for work. That makes sense. Have a goal in that space. And also the last goal is community, to give back and to actively give back. Time, sometimes money, energy. And I think if you've got those a goal in those 4 areas, there's your week, your month, your year, your life. So they're the things that get me going.
I'm going to get my 4 goals. That's awesome. That's such great advice. Speaking about giving back, you are huge on that. And I mentioned before you have your foundation that supports young people in wheelchairs. Tell me about what your foundation is doing.
So before swimming the English Channel back in 1998, I was given a cheque for $20,000 and that was to put to a good cause. And I looked at all the different charities and organisations around, and there are many.
Yes.
And I thought if I started a foundation, these kids could be a part of a family and they could always tap back into that family. And as the family continued to grow, we could help them wherever they ended up or direction they wanted to move in.
Yeah.
So that's how it started. It was originally at a state level in New South Wales. And then in 2002, I did a handbike ride from Brisbane to Melbourne down the east coast of our country. And we raised $400,000. We've now raised $3 million.
Wow.
And we help kids right around the country. And our point of difference is saying to a child that you are equal.
Right.
So it's changing the dialogue and saying to parents, stop telling your child that they are less than. Don't use the word disabled. There's no need to use that word. Empower your children, encourage your children, support your children. So I think from having all that as a background, it's given me a platform to have a voice for others.
Yeah.
So the foundation continues to allow kids in particular to have opportunities. It could be modifications to the house, to the car, wheelchair, musical instrument, a computer, whatever that looks like. To the foundation is means tested, so we want to help families that are struggling to help themselves, and it has an impact on the whole family, not just the individual.
Yep.
So I want to continue to do more good work to raise more money to help more kids in our country.
So great, because sometimes the smallest thing is the biggest thing. Adjustment to the house, a computer might seem like such a simple, small thing, but to somebody else that is everything, and that's life-changing.
Absolutely.
That's so great. Good on you. And John, you've written this book, How Far Can You Go? It's titled exactly what your dad asked you in the hospital, and such a great question because it really is unanswerable, I think, because the sky's the limit. But tell me about this book.
I was approached by a US publisher to put a book together when they heard about the triathlon, because the story then, there was really now an ending to the story, meaning there was a starting point. I got hit by a truck, training for a triathlon. I went and did bits and pieces, and then 26 years later, I crossed the line with my wife and my son. So start and
Middle,
end.
yep.
Middle, there's plenty to weave or massage. So it was wonderful to be over in the US. The US writer, Mark Tabb, he came over here and he was involved in 4 New York bestsellers, including Alec Baldwin's book. So it was nice to have him walking and kind of getting a sense of what was actually taking place. So the first half of the book is about me being a little boy growing up until having my accident. And the next half is taking on a conventional triathlon and talking about the language and talking about the thoughts of me learning to let go of all that in order for me to get to that start line. The swim was a lot of fun. The bike ride was great. The walk was challenging.
Yeah.
So 3 hours and 31 minutes to cover 10 kilometres. Great to have done that with, great Australian Steve Waugh.
Wow.
There's a funny, quick little story that I'd rang him up to say, would you like to join me? And he said, I can't swim. And I said, I can't walk. So he said, okay, you got me there. So it was nice to have Steve Waugh a part of that journey. And, collectively we managed to get there. So again, around teamwork, I built a great team to encourage and enable me to get to that finish line. So it was great to do the book in the US. It's now great that it's available here in our country.
Yeah.
And again, to your point, that it's a great question for all of us. How far can we go? Are we happy with where we are today? Yes or no? If it's no, then what do you want it to look like tomorrow? So it's kind of open up the thought of the dialogue around exploring potential, let go of yesterday, and get excited about today.
Do you think we should ever be happy with where we are?
Well,
Or do
see,
you think
happy
we
is
should
a wonderful
always
word.
be pushing forward?
Well, I think it's about contentment. So what gives you fulfillment? For me, I think it's always the opposites attract, right? Meaning, you look at that or have that conversation and think that all I ever do is continue to go, and that's not the case. For me, I always want to make sure that before I close a door on an experience, I absorb what had taken place and celebrate the occasion.
Yes.
So I stop. I have a
Yes.
cup of tea.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I might go and do some meditation if the time presents, or be still in the moment when I'm pushing Jack on a swing and really absorb all that's happening and be fully in the moment. I'm all about trying to find the elusive balance, and the balance is when it's full on, there needs to be an opportunity to slow that right down to find the ground in the middle. But for me, there's a lot more to do.
Yeah.
I'm excited about exploring. To my dad, because I feel, and I wear his bracelet in his memory, he said to me, how far can... He didn't say, John, how about you go around the block a few times and I'll be happy with that. He said, how far can you go for your life? And I'm inspired to keep on exploring that in his memory.
That's beautiful. I'm going to start doing that more, celebrating, like maybe buy a cake or something like that.
Sounds good. I look forward to having a bit of tea and cake.
Tea and cake. Tea and cake with Jules and John. That's a new show. Now, something exciting that's happening with this book that you've just shared with me before this interview, a potential movie might be coming out around you and your story. How exciting.
It's very exciting. So we've signed a contract with Sunstar Films here in Australia. And the first movie, the trailer's just been released, called Lion. So that's the first one, which is
it looks unbelievable.
high expectations on that, which is wonderful. I'm looking forward to seeing the full movie. The second movie is well underway with Jessica Watson, the girl you recall, our great Australian, youngest ever to sail around the world. And I'm kind of third cab off the ranks. So, you know, if it comes to the cinema, I look forward to sharing that with you and Guy and whoever else wants to come along with it. But so you can see there's something that could potentially happen here, right?
Yep.
So there's bits that you have control over and bits that you don't. So by me signing it, it's giving my life rights for a period of time. And if that grows and evolves and kind of comes to being, and it's going to be on the screen, I'd love to share that with you. If not, I'm not going to stop and go, oh, why not? And
Right.
but potentially at the moment, it's quite exciting. I'm having the conversations with all the right people. A lot of the questions are, you know, who would you want to play you, being an Australian?
Yes, that was my next question.
So if I was to pick someone, dreaming, pretty hard to go past Chris Hemsworth.
Oh,
I mean, he's the king of all kings at the moment, right?
number one.
But, you know, I believe that his agent's getting the book to him, and if he gets excited about it, and if he wants to do it, well, you know, that would be that would be that would be a wonderful outcome. So, throwing it out there, that would be the dream.
I would like to have like maybe Julia Roberts or Charlize Theron. They resemble me a lot, I feel, you know? Really.
I'm not sure they could do you justice.
Oh, you're so nice. You're a charmer. John, this has been, I'm so inspired. You've given me personally so many pearls of wisdom and such good advice, and just seeing your life unfold is truly inspiring. And I think just by living your life, you're cheering the rest of us on. So keep going for the rest of us. And I'm so excited to see what happens with your book and the potential movie. And if you could invite me along to that premiere, so maybe Chris and I could have a cup of tea, whatever, no pressure.
No pressure. I get it. You want to meet Chris. It's not about...
Thank you. That was not the point of today, okay? Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate your time and I appreciate your story, and I just appreciate you as a human. You're amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jules.